9-year-old Maya stood in the doorway of Rico's garage with her grandfather, her clouded eyes staring at nothing while her small hands trembled. She turned her head toward the sound of rumbling motorcycle engines and spoke in a voice that carried desperation older than her years. "I need help seeing my mom's face one last time before she dies." The 12 Hells Angels eating lunch stopped mid-bite. The girl was clearly blind. Her request made no sense. But her grandfather's tears and the way she tilted her head listening to their bikes told them this wasn't a simple request. This was something far more complicated and urgent than any of them understood. Can you imagine what you could be? I'll tell you now that you would never guess the answer. Rico Hammer Martinez was 49 years old and road captain for the Iron Wolves chapter of the Hells Angels when Maya Chen and her grandfather walked into his garage on a Thursday afternoon at 1:15. The garage doubled as an unofficial clubhouse where members gathered for lunch, working on bikes while eating takeout and discussing club business. 12 members were present when the old man and the little girl appeared in the entrance, both of them looking exhausted and desperate. Rico noticed the girl immediately. She was small for 9 years old, thin and fragile looking, with long black hair and eyes that didn't focus on anything, clouded, opaque, blind. She held her grandfather's hand tightly while turning her head toward sounds, orienting herself through hearing rather than sight. Her grandfather was in his 70s, Chinese American, wearing worn clothes and carrying the weight of someone who hadn't slept in days. He clutched a manila envelope like it contained something precious or damning. Rico stood and approached carefully. "Can I help you folks?" The grandfather's voice shook. "My name is David Chen. This is my granddaughter Maya. We need help. The kind of help I don't think regular people can give us. I heard Hells Angels protect people who need protecting. Is that true?" Rico exchanged glances with his brothers. "Depends on the situation. What kind of help do you need?" Maya spoke before her grandfather could answer. Her voice was clear despite her obvious fear. "I need to see my mom's face. One more time. Before she dies. Before I can never touch her again." The statement hung in the air, confusing and heartbreaking. Rico knelt down to Maya's level. "Sweetheart, I don't understand. You said you want to see your mom's face?" Maya nodded. "I'm blind. I can't see with my eyes, but I can see with my hands. By touching faces, feeling features. That's how I know what people look like. But my mom is in the hospital and they won't let me visit her. She's dying and I'll never get to remember her face. I'll never get to see her one more time." Rico looked at David Chen. "What's the situation?" The old man's words came out in a rush of desperation. "My daughter Lynn is in Community General Hospital. She's been in a coma for 3 weeks after a car accident. The doctors say she has maybe days left before they pull life support. Maya is her daughter. I'm her father. We should be able to visit. But Lynn's husband, Maya's stepfather, has gotten a restraining order against us. Claims we're disruptive. Claims Maya being blind would upset other patients. But the truth is, he's an abusive bastard who hurt Lynn for years. The accident wasn't an accident. He ran her car off the road during a fight. And now he's using the legal system to keep Maya from saying goodbye to her own mother." Rico felt rage building. "You've tried going through official channels?" David nodded bitterly. "Lawyers, hospital administration, family court. They all say the restraining order is legal, that we need to respect it, that challenging it will take weeks we don't have. So I thought maybe there's another way. A way that doesn't follow the rules because the rules are designed to protect people like him instead of people like us. I heard your club helps people the system fails. Please. My granddaughter deserves to say goodbye to her mother. She deserves to touch her face one more time. To remember what her mom looks like before the memory fades." Rico stood and addressed his brothers. "We've got a situation. Little girl needs to visit her dying mother in the hospital. Stepfather has a restraining order blocking it. We're being asked to help get around that order. Thoughts?" The room was silent for 3 seconds. Then one of the older members, a man called Ghost, who was 62 and had been riding for 40 years, spoke up. "We've broken worse laws for better reasons. Let's get this kid to her mom." The plan formed quickly. The Iron Wolves would use their annual hospital charity visit as cover. Every year, the chapter donated toys and money to Community General's pediatric ward. They would move that visit to today, right now, and they would bring Maya along as part of the event. The hospital couldn't refuse a charity donation. And in the chaos of 12 bikers delivering gifts, Maya and her grandfather could slip into Lin Chen's room for a brief visit. It was risky. If caught, they could face charges for violating a restraining order. But the alternative was a blind 9-year-old never getting to say goodbye to her mother. Within 30 minutes, the Iron Wolves mobilized. They gathered toys from storage, prepared donation checks, and coordinated with the hospital's community relations department to announce an impromptu charity visit. The hospital, eager for positive publicity and donations, agreed enthusiastically. At 2:30, 12 motorcycles rolled into Community General's parking lot, their engines creating a thunderous sound that echoed off the building. Maya rode behind Rico, her small arms wrapped around his waist, her face tilted up toward the sky as if trying to catch sunlight she couldn't see. The bikers entered the hospital lobby carrying bags of toys and oversized donation checks. Hospital staff and media representatives gathered, cameras flashing, everyone focused on the spectacle of Hell's Angels delivering charity. In the confusion, Rico and Ghost guided Maya and David toward the elevators. Lin Chen was in room 417 in the ICU. They took the stairs to avoid security cameras, moving quickly but carefully. Rico holding Maya's hand and describing obstacles so she wouldn't trip. The ICU floor was quiet and dimly lit. Visiting hours were restricted. Most rooms were closed. Rico identified room 417 and checked for obstacles. A security guard sat at the nurse's station reading his phone. One nurse was reviewing charts. No sign of the stepfather. Rico made a decision. We move. Fast. 5 minutes. Get in, say goodbye, get out. Understood? David nodded, his face showing both gratitude and terror. They entered Lin Chen's room. The woman lying in the hospital bed looked nothing like the vibrant person David described. She was 42 but looked ancient, connected to machines that breathed for her and monitored her failing systems. Her face was bruised from the accident, bandages covering wounds that would never fully heal. The doctors had given her 72 hours before they recommended ending life support. Her husband, Marcus Webb, had agreed to sign the papers. He wanted his wife dead before she could wake and tell the truth about what he'd done. Maya approached the bed slowly, her hands outstretched, searching for her mother. David guided her to Lin's side. Maya's small fingers found her mother's face, tracing features with the gentle precision of someone reading Braille. She touched her mother's forehead, her cheeks, her nose, her lips, memorizing, through touch, what her eyes could never see. Tears streamed down Maya's face as she whispered, I love you, Mama. I'm sorry I wasn't there to protect you. I'm sorry he hurt you. But I'm here now. I wanted you to know I'm here. That's when everything changed. Lin Chen's fingers moved, just slightly, just barely, but they moved. The heart monitor's rhythm changed, accelerating slightly. David gasped. Lin? Lin, can you hear us? Rico watched in shock as Lin Chen's eyes fluttered. After 3 weeks in a coma, with doctors claiming she would never wake, Lin Chen was showing signs of consciousness. Maya screamed suddenly. She's awake! I can hear her! She's crying! Rico looked at the woman in the bed. She wasn't crying. Her eyes were still closed. There was no visible change beyond the slight finger movement and elevated heart rate. Maya, sweetheart, what do you mean you can hear her? Rico asked gently. Maya's face was radiant with joy. She's crying on the inside. I can hear it. She knows I'm here. She's trying to wake up. She's fighting. A nurse burst into the room, alerted by the heart monitor changes. What's going on? Who are you people? You're not authorized to be here! Before anyone could answer, Marcus Webb appeared in the doorway. He was 38, well-dressed, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to getting his way. His face twisted with rage when he saw Maya and David. What the hell are you doing here? You're violating a restraining order. Security! Get these people out of here! Rico stepped between Marcus and Maya. We're leaving. Give us 2 minutes. Marcus's voice was venomous. You're leaving now. And I'm pressing charges. All of you. For trespassing. For violating a legal order. For he stopped mid-sentence. Lin Chen's eyes had opened. Fully open. Focused. Awake. For the first time in 3 weeks, she was conscious and aware. The nurse stared in shock. Oh my God! Doctor! We need a doctor in 417 immediately! Lin's eyes found Maya first. Her daughter standing beside her bed, tears streaming down her blind eyes. Lin's mouth moved, trying to speak around the breathing tube. The nurse called for assistance to remove the tube safely. Within minutes, doctors flooded the room, monitoring Lynn's vitals, assessing her consciousness, confirming what seemed impossible. She was awake, responsive, emerging from a coma that should have been permanent. Dr. Patricia Okoye, the attending neurologist, examined Lynn with obvious astonishment. "This is unprecedented. Your scans showed severe traumatic brain injury. We expected minimal brain function even if you woke, but your responses are normal, strong. You're tracking movement, following commands. This is remarkable." She turned to the group in the room. "What happened? What changed?" Rico spoke up. "The girl, Maya, she came to say goodbye, started touching her mother's face." The mother responded. "Maya said she could hear her mother crying. We thought the kid was imagining it, but apparently she was right." Dr. Okoye looked at Maya with new respect. "You could hear your mother?" Maya nodded. "I'm blind, but I hear everything. When I touched her, I heard her heart crying. Heard her trying to come back. She wanted to see me. She heard the motorcycles outside and knew I was here." The doctor considered this. There's documented evidence that coma patients respond to familiar sounds and emotional stimuli. The motorcycle engines could have triggered recognition. Your touch, your voice, the emotional context, all of it could have activated neural pathways we thought were dormant. You may have literally woken your mother from a coma. Marcus Webb stood frozen, his plans disintegrating. He had been counting on Lynn dying before she could accuse him, had been preparing to collect life insurance and move on. Now she was awake, aware, and surrounded by witnesses including 12 Hell's Angels who were recording everything on their phones. Marcus tried to recover his composure. "This doesn't change the restraining order. These people violated a legal order. I want them arrested." Dr. Okoye's voice was cold. "Mr. Webb, your wife just emerged from a coma because her daughter visited. I'm not calling security on the people who saved my patient's life. Now leave this room so we can focus on Lynn's recovery." Marcus tried to argue, but Ghost, the 62-year-old biker, stepped forward. "You heard the doctor. Leave, or we escort you out. Our choice, which option sounds better?" Marcus glared at the 12 Hell's Angels surrounding him and made the calculation that confrontation wasn't worth it. He left, but his parting words were threatening. "This isn't over. I have rights. I have legal standing. You haven't won anything." Rico watched him leave and spoke quietly to David. "We need to make sure that bastard doesn't have access to Lynn." "She's vulnerable right now." David nodded. "I'll file for an emergency protective order, and I'll tell the truth about what he did. About the accident that wasn't an accident." Over the next 72 hours, Lynn Chen's recovery continued at a pace that amazed her medical team. She regained full consciousness. Her cognitive functions were intact. She could speak, remember, reason. The traumatic brain injury had been severe, but her brain had compensated and healed in ways that defied expectations. When she was strong enough to give a statement, she told investigators the truth. Marcus Webb had run her car off the road during an argument about his abuse. He had been controlling and violent for years. She had been planning to leave him and take Maya. The accident had been his attempt to stop her permanently. Marcus Webb was arrested and charged with attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and domestic violence. The restraining order he had obtained against Maya and David was immediately dissolved. Lynn was granted full custody of Maya, with David as guardian during her recovery. The legal system that had protected Marcus now turned against him as evidence mounted. Phone records showing threats. Medical records documenting injuries Lynn had claimed were accidents. Testimony from neighbors who had heard fights. And Lynn's own account of a man who had tried to kill her to prevent her from escaping. The Iron Wolves maintained their involvement. They visited Lynn during her hospital stay, bringing food and support. They attended court hearings, their presence making it clear that Lynn and Maya were under protection. They testified as witnesses to Lynn's awakening, providing crucial evidence of Marcus's reaction when she woke. And they became permanent fixtures in Maya's life. These intimidating men who had helped a blind girl see her mother one last time, and in doing so, saved her mother's life. 3 months after the motorcycle ride that changed everything, Lynn was released from the hospital. She still had physical therapy ahead of her, recovery from injuries that would take months, but she was alive and whole and reunited with her daughter. The Iron Wolves organized a welcome home party at Rico's garage. 40 bikers gathered to celebrate, bringing food and decorations and joy. Maya moved through the crowd confidently, touching faces, learning features, seeing with her hands what her eyes could never show her. She approached Rico and asked permission to touch his face. He knelt down and let her small fingers trace his features. "You have kind eyes," Maya said, which made no sense since she couldn't see eyes. But Rico understood. She was feeling the lines around his eyes, the permanent smile creases that came from years of laughing. She was reading his character through topography. "You saved my mom," Maya continued. "You saved me. How do I say thank you for that?" Rico's voice was gentle. "You already did. By being brave enough to ask for help. By trusting us. That's all the thanks we need." Maya touched each biker's face that day, memorizing features, building a mental gallery of the men who had become her family. Ghost had a weathered face with a strong jaw and a nose broken multiple times. Hammer had scars on his cheeks and a beard that tickled her fingers. Steel had laugh lines deeper than anyone and a birthmark near his left eye. She cataloged them all, creating visual memories through touch, seeing them in ways sighted people never could. Lynn watched her daughter and felt overwhelming gratitude. "You didn't have to help us. You took enormous risks. If something had gone wrong, if she hadn't woken up, you could have faced serious charges." "Why did you do it?" Rico considered the question. "Because a blind kid asked us to help her see her mom one more time. How do you say no to that? How do you let the system stop a dying woman from seeing her daughter? We couldn't. So, we didn't." Lynn's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for seeing past the rules to what mattered, for giving Maya back her mother, for giving me back my life." 1 year after the coma, Lynn Chen had recovered fully. She worked as a teacher at a school for blind children, using her experience with Maya to help other parents understand how blind kids perceive the world. Maya thrived, attending school, learning Braille, training with a guide dog, living a normal life that had almost been stolen by violence and legal manipulation. Marcus Webb was serving 15 years for attempted murder, his appeals exhausted, his reputation destroyed. The Iron Wolves remained close to the Chen family. They attended Maya's school events. They helped Lynn with home repairs and car maintenance. They celebrated holidays together. This unlikely family of bikers and a blind girl and her mother. Maya's 10th birthday party was held at Rico's garage. 40 Hells Angels gathered to celebrate a little girl who had taught them that seeing wasn't just about eyes. That sometimes you saw more clearly through touch and sound and emotional connection than through vision. During the party, Maya gave a speech she had prepared. "Last year, I thought I was going to lose my mom forever. I thought the last thing I would remember was her face from months before the accident. But these men, these scary-looking bikers everyone fears, they helped me see her one more time. And when I touched her face in that hospital room, something magic happened. She woke up. The doctors say it was medical, neural pathways and emotional stimuli. But I know the truth. She woke up because she heard the motorcycles, because she knew I was there, because love is louder than medicine. These men didn't just help me see my mom. They helped my mom see me. And that's a miracle I'll never forget." The bikers stood listening, many with tears in their eyes. These hardened men who had seen violence and loss felt something profound in Maya's words. They had been called many things in their lives: criminals, outlaws, threats, but never miracle workers, never saviors. Until a blind girl taught them that sometimes the most important thing you can see is what's invisible to eyes: connection, love, family, the things that make life worth living even when you can't see them. 5 years after the incident, Maya was 14 and preparing for high school. She had developed into a confident, articulate young woman who spoke publicly about disability rights and domestic violence prevention. She shared her story at schools, conferences, and community events, explaining how a group of Hells Angels had saved her family when systems designed to protect them had failed. Her speeches always ended the same way: "Don't judge people by how they look. Judge them by what they do when someone needs help. The scariest-looking people saved my family. The most respectable-looking person tried to kill my mother. Appearances lie. Actions tell the truth." Rico attended one of Maya's speeches at a high school assembly, watched her stand confidently on stage, her guide dog beside her, speaking about resilience and unconventional heroes. After the speech, students gathered around asking questions. One teenager asked why she trusted bikers when everyone says they're dangerous. Maya smiled. "Because when I needed help, they showed up. When the legal system failed us, they found another way." When my mom was dying, they helped me reach her. That's not dangerous. That's heroic. The dangerous people are the ones who hurt others and hide behind respectability. My stepfather looked safe. The bikers looked scary. But it was the bikers who protected us and the respectable man who tried to kill my mother. So I learned to judge people differently, by their actions, not their appearance. The teenager persisted. But aren't you scared of them? They're Hell's Angels. They have tattoos and weapons and criminal records. Maya's response was immediate and firm. I'm blind. I can't see tattoos. I can't see weapons. I can't see criminal records. I can only feel hearts. And their hearts are good. They're loyal. They're protective. They're kind. That's what I see. That's what matters. The assembly erupted in applause. Rico felt pride swell in his chest. This kid, who had walked into his garage terrified and desperate, had become a voice for looking past surfaces to truth. 10 years after the motorcycle ride that saved Lin Chen's life, Maya graduated from high school with honors. She had been accepted to university with a full scholarship to study psychology, planning to work with trauma survivors and domestic violence victims. The Iron Wolves attended her graduation, 40 men in leather vests sitting in an auditorium full of families, completely out of place but completely welcome. Maya gave the valedictorian speech, her guide dog sitting patiently beside the podium. 10 years ago, my mother almost died. I almost lost her forever. But a group of men decided that rules designed to keep us apart were wrong. They broke those rules to help me say goodbye, and in doing so, they saved her life. People ask me how I knew my mother was waking up, how I heard her crying when nobody else could. The truth is, I don't know. Maybe being blind makes me hear differently. Maybe love has a sound that only shows up when you're listening with your whole heart. But I know this. When I touched my mother's face that day, I wasn't just seeing her. I was calling her back. And she heard me. She came back because she knew I needed her. And I knew she would come back because I believed in miracles. The miracle of unconventional heroes. The miracle of chosen family. The miracle of love that's louder than death. Maya paused, tears streaming down her face. To the Iron Wolves who saved my family, thank you for teaching me that the world is bigger than what we can see. That family is whoever shows up when you call. That heroism wears leather and rides motorcycles and shows up when everyone else says it's impossible. You gave me my mother back. You gave us both a future. And you taught me the most important lesson I've ever learned. That the scariest looking people can be the safest place to land when your world is falling apart. I love you all. Thank you for being my family. The auditorium erupted in applause. Rico stood with tears running down his face, surrounded by his brothers, all of them emotional wrecks. They had attended this graduation not as intimidating bikers, but as proud family members watching a girl they had helped save graduate and prepare to change the world. After the ceremony, Maya found Rico in the crowd. She touched his face, reading his features with practiced ease. You're crying, she said gently. Rico laughed. Yeah, kid, I'm crying. You turned into something amazing. Your mom would be proud. I mean, she is proud. She's right over there crying too. But you know what I mean. Maya hugged him tightly. I wouldn't be here without you. None of us would. You saved us by breaking rules that needed to be broken. By trusting a blind girl who said she could hear her mother's heart. By being brave enough to help when it was risky and illegal and dangerous. That's real heroism. Not following rules, but knowing when rules need to be broken to save lives. Rico held her, this kid who had become family, and felt something profound. Purpose. Meaning. Proof that sometimes the most important thing you can do is say yes when someone asks for help, regardless of the risks or consequences. Enrique Rico Martinez rode with the Hells Angels for 31 years. He built a reputation as someone loyal and fierce. But his defining moment came when a blind 9-year-old girl walked into his garage and asked to see her mother's face one last time. Rico could have said no, could have explained about restraining orders and legal consequences, could have protected himself and his club from potential charges. Instead, he said yes. He organized a charity visit as cover. He helped a blind girl reach her dying mother. And in doing so, he witnessed a miracle. A woman waking from a coma because love called her back. A family reunited despite systems designed to keep them apart. A blind girl seeing more clearly than anyone with working eyes. The story became legend in the Hells Angels community. The blind girl who woke her mother with touch, and the bikers who made it possible. It was told in clubhouses and at rallies, a reminder that sometimes the most important rides aren't about miles or destinations, but about helping people reach the ones they love. That sometimes you break rules not because you're lawless, but because you're following a higher law. The law that says children deserve to say goodbye to dying parents. That says love matters more than paperwork. That says when someone needs help, you show up regardless of consequences. Maya carried the iron wolves with her always, not just in memory but in practice. She became a psychologist specializing in trauma recovery, helping survivors of domestic violence rebuild their lives. She advocated for legal reforms that prevented abusers from weaponizing restraining orders. She spoke publicly about unconventional support systems and the importance of looking past appearances to character. And she maintained relationships with the bikers who had saved her family. These men who had taught her that angels come in all forms, including leather vests and loud motorcycles. On the 10th anniversary of her mother's awakening, Maya organized a memorial ride. 50 Hells Angels and 100 community members joined her, riding through the city to raise awareness about domestic violence and the failures of legal systems that protect abusers. At the end of the ride, they gathered at Community General Hospital, where a plaque had been installed, commemorating Lin Chen's recovery and the unconventional intervention that made it possible. The plaque read, "Sometimes miracles arrive on motorcycles. Sometimes angels wear leather. Sometimes love is louder than death. And sometimes seeing requires more than eyes." Maya stood before the plaque with her mother beside her and 40 Hells Angels surrounding them. She touched the brass surface, reading the inscription with her fingers, seeing with her hands the words that captured everything that mattered. 10 years ago, these men saved us. They didn't follow rules. They followed their hearts. And that made all the difference. Thank you for showing me that family is whoever shows up when you call. That heroism is doing the right thing even when it's dangerous. And that the most important things we see are the ones invisible to eyes. Love, loyalty, courage. The things that make life worth living, even when you can't see them. Rico stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, and felt complete. This was why they rode, why they protected, why they stood up when others wouldn't. Not for glory or recognition, but for moments like this. A blind girl standing with her mother, both alive and thriving, surrounded by family who had chosen each other rather than being assigned by biology. That was family. That was love. And that, Rico understood finally and completely, was all that ever really mattered. If this story about unconventional miracles, chosen family, and breaking rules to save lives moved you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories that prove heroism doesn't follow guidelines or wear uniforms. Drop a like if you believe that sometimes seeing requires more than eyes and that the scariest looking people can be the safest when you need protection. Here's your question for the comments. Would you have the courage to break rules that are clearly wrong to help someone desperately in need? Or does the fear of consequences stop us from doing what's right? Let's discuss what real courage looks like in the comments below. See you in the next story.